AKA Patters, what would you say if I said that Mission Impossible was a family movie? Because that's what we did when it dropped. Mission Impossible, it was Tom Cruise. I was a VHS super nerd. It was directed by Brian De Palma. Like, Brian De Palma is directing an espionage thriller with Tom Cruise based on an old-timey TV show. So let's get the fam. Let's go check it out. And that's exactly what we did. And ever since that point, I tried to share the Mission Impossible movies with people I care about. Isn't that wild? Even though as a family, we never saw another one. But for me, the Mission Impossible movies, as the franchise marched on, became linchpins, somewhat anchors in my life. And I'm happy to bring this movie to you and tell you a little bit about that. And guys, get excited for the final one coming. Final Reckoning, right? It's not Dead Reckoning Part 2. I think did they change the title and not fax me about it? Let's go.
Quiet on the set.
Camera speed.
Sound production, take 1.
Action!
My AKA Patters, welcome back to the show of shows. We got two of my favorite topics today. It's Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible. And hey, we're going back to 1996 when my family and I, we would go out and catch movies together. The four of us, my mother, my father, my sister, and me. The future film buff. 1996. This was a movie that I just remember looking forward to this movie just off of the strength of Brian De Palma. I was a Quentin Tarantino aficionado back then. There wasn't a lot of interviews or things, but whenever there was like a magazine article or something in Rolling Stone, I would buy it, I would read it. At the time, he was paraded around. This was a fun time to look back on because I'm a high school kid. I'm spending all my time in Best Buy that had it seemed like an infinite library of VHS at the time. Before that, I would have to spend time in rental stores and in my local mall, Suncoast Video. We had Hollywood Videos. We had a couple Blockbusters near us. One or two of the West Coast Video too. So there was Suncoast and West Coast. West Coast had the porn, by the way. And at this time, just as a family, as things to do together around the summer, we grew up as a movie family. And my father, like heavily into music, he would tape movies off of, at the time, Cinemax, HBO, and he would design these labels, and just always had the flair when pen met paper for him. He couldn't just write, for example, Aliens or Excalibur. He had to make it look like the movie. And a lot of those, like those designs, those approaches, are still with me to this day. Very, very impactful. I wish I still had some of them. Kind of reminds me of for AKAPAD.com, the film buff's favorite website, by the way. I did this project a while ago where one of my high school rivals, who pretty much like disappeared off the face of the earth, like it's hard for me to get any info on him. I tried digging, pretty good for a few years, but I believe at one time he was on social, but then like that just faded away, and there's other tools for that. But with all of that, I decided to recreate his art style that kind of possessed me when I was younger. And just did a couple entries for the website, and became like a little bit more of a larger project because he was he designed like this video game. So I'm like, let me try and do that. But it was like doing it from memory and having it a certain way that now I like that work is preserved in time. And I feel like I should do that with my father's VHS labels. But we went out to see Mission Impossible. at the time, I knew Robert Town, who, so we we kind of record all over the place. I did a Mission Impossible 2 episode already that I have yet to release, and in that episode I mentioned Robert Town and how much of a Robert Town fanboy I am, because he's the one that wrote The Last Detail, Chinatown, The Yakuza, Shampoo, Days of Thunder, Tequila Sunrise, Greystroke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, the greatest of all the Tarzan movies. He wrote Love Affair. He wrote Without Limits, which is the Prefontaine movie. And he co-wrote Mission Impossible, and he wrote Mission Impossible 2. He's one of the great Hollywood writers, and he writes stories where men have their backs up against the wall. He might still be active, I don't know, but he has a laundry list of work. So in my upcoming Mission Impossible 2 episode, I don't quite gloss over Robert Town enough. But at the time, and this is I think mostly on the strength, there used to be like this cinema, like Cinema Through the Eyes or something like that. It was a PBS, maybe like a 10, 9, 12 episode series, and they just have filmmakers talking, and I think Martin Scorsese was like on the forefront of this, who's the first guy in history where when he spoke about movies, you effing listened. Hopefully one day they'll look at me the same way. But they do this 70s episode in this one random PBS show I watched, and I loved stuff like this when I was younger. And they talk about Brian De Palma, and then like later, again, like maybe I'm like blurring the years, but like Quentin Tarantino would talk about Brian De Palma on and on. But Brian De Palma was on my radar, and Scarface, 1983, nothing to do with it. I was big on Dress to Kill. I was big on Carrie. I was big on Body Double. I was big on Blowout. I was big on Raising Cain, Casualties of War. At the time, even to this day, I don't think I've seen Bonfire of the Vanities, but him arriving, doing Mission Impossible with Tom Cruise, really positioned to be like the biggest movie of all time. This was a big deal to a young Peter, and I just look back and I remember my anticipation and somewhat disappointment in this movie. Now, I recently just watched this flick, and holy crap, does it move, and do I love it. So the upcoming movies, we introduce more and more tech. Like there's one of them has like a train cart that's a whole lab. And this is before they're revealing all the technology for the disguises, which they've spent like 6 movies dissecting. Mission Impossible 3 is the big one on that. But this was more in tone to the TV series, where it's just like a bunch of people on a mission trying to figure things out. Things go awry, and Tom Cruise as Ethan Hunt, he needs to spend time in front of a computer searching for things, and he kind of dissects a way to get to the person behind some of this. And again, it's a web. This movie is a fantastic web. It's very Hitchcockian. It's very, very Brian De Palma at this time. I think is fantastic now. Now, when I was younger, I wanted this to be a Dress to Kill. I wanted this to be this like grittier, darker movie that had like more of a hook. And the crazy thing is, I'm watching this movie now, and like the explosion at the aquarium, where he jumps out the front of the restaurant, and the aquarium water, which runs overhead, crashes down, and it's that awesome pull away shot where we see the water and the fish spilling into the street, and Tom Cruise just like Ethan Hunt just bucking, right? I look forward to that. I look forward to everything with the helicopter and the train at the end. And that one time, I didn't. And so throughout these years, like I would never go back to Mission Impossible. I would go back to 2. I would go back to 3, but not the original. But this time around, I said, like, it's been a little bit. And the whole sequence with the knife when he's hanging to get that knock list. It is one of the most tense scenes ever filmed. Instantly iconic, and I never made that connection. I never said to myself, this is an instantly iconic moment. The visuals that came out of this movie is really the aquarium, if I can say that, the explosion with the helicopter, him getting pushed forward. But AKA Padders, this movie's there. This is one of the best big budget espionage movies, period. I still remember the shock of the death of Emilio Estevez in this movie, of the turn of John Voight, because when I was younger, I wasn't so aware of movie tropes, right? Like, it's just, to me, it's like, wow, they really killed the opening cast. This is crazy. And watching it now, and I watched it with my fiance. She didn't, she doesn't know. So she's watching it for the first time through new eyes. Really cool stuff. So to note Brian De Palma, 2 years from now, he makes this movie with Nicolas Cage. It's a real-time movie. It's one of the best real-time movies ever made. Snake Eyes. And then he makes a banger astronaut movie called Mission to Mars. Now, from there on, he trails off. He really does. He makes less and less. And also, too, you get a little bit older. Like all of these things, maybe you lose some of your Hollywood connections. I don't know. But at the same time, he does get back with his femme fatale, which is a little bit of his signature. So he does make a movie called Femme Fatale. He makes a Black Dahlia movie. Did I see Redacted in 2007? I don't think I have. But it's great that he was able to use the attention and everything from Mission Impossible, and he makes, in my view, 2 stellar movies post Mission Impossible. These are 2 opinions you may not hear a lot of, but this movie really just brings me back to Deptford, New Jersey, getting popcorn and just sitting down and being entertained with your family and having everyone there. I do love this franchise, and I believe that with the franchise continuing now, I do believe there could not have been more of a perfect start for a franchise than this movie. I don't know. If you would have told me that they would have continued this franchise until 2025, I would have laughed. If you told me that even post Mission Impossible 2, I would have laughed. I would have said, this is going to fizzle out maybe at 4. One extraordinary franchise, guys. We gotta give a lot of credit to Tom Cruise and his ability to get things done. Brian De Palma was the perfect choice to jumpstart all of this. And in a way, when we have these opening sequences and they light the fuse, we have to say that's Brian De Palma lighting the fuse.
Okay, that's a wrap.